And once again, welcome back to my Dirty Dirt Bike shop. Alright, got to open up this bottom end and see what we got going on in here, if we have to buy anything else. Went ahead and sat the motor on top of this tray right here, because as I go to open this motor, it's going to drop the last little bit of oil that's sitting in all the crevices and stuff. And I like to keep my shop towels oil free, so all I got to do is wash them. If you haven't caught the first part of this video, there will be a link down in the description to the first part of the video where I pulled the motor off and got us to this point. Let me start by getting the shifter off of here. Alright, got that off. I think I'll go ahead and get this gear sensor off there. All that really does is tell the computer when this bike is in neutral. It's to retard the timing and kind of quiet down the exhaust note a little bit to pass inspections for certain race events, which I think is kind of cheating in itself, because once you put it in gear, it's going to be loud. But hey, it's all good. Whatever helps to keep getting them out there. Alright, that one. Whew. I kind of always told myself if I ever got in the bottom end, I would basically delete this sensor. But, you know, after owning the bike for a while, I think I'm going to keep it in place, because there are times when I accidentally catch neutral, and you know, you think you got it in gear. You're going down from second to first, and then you go to mid-corner, you go to hit the gas, and yang, it's in neutral, and you end up falling on the ground while you're smacking the rev limiter. So if it retards the timing, that might take a load off the motor a little bit when it's in neutral and it's freaking full throttle. But anyway, when you pull that sensor out, inside of there, inside of a little hole, is a spring and a plunger. So you want to pull the plunger out first, and look in the hole and fish that spring out. Make sure you get that. It goes right here in that bottom hole right there. So make sure you get that out of there, because you don't want to lose that. Alright, I have a flywheel puller here. We're going to have to get the flywheel off. Again, an impact really makes a lot of this stuff easier, because if I didn't have an impact, I would have to use other tools to either hold the flywheel and do it two-handedly, or on the other side of the motor you get a aluminum block and cram up the gears. But man, impact makes it so much easier. This puller, you can pick these up anywhere, Rocky Mountain, eBay, whatever. But you these are reverse thread when you're putting them in onto the flywheel, and then normal thread to actually use the tool. There we go. There's probably a washer in there. Yes, there is. Make sure you get that. Now we got to get the stator out of there. When you unbolt the stator, this is where you can adjust the ignition timing by loosening these 3 bolts up and spinning the stator. But there is marks for stock. There's this line that goes right here, and it meets up with the line on the case down here. So just verify where your bike's at before you take it apart, especially if you're dealing with a bike that's been heavily modified. Let's say you're one of the lucky ones that got like Ryan Villapoto's pro circuit bike that he used in Red Bull, and you know they spent a lot of time tuning that thing in. Make sure you see where they have it set at before you take it apart, because if you like the way that motor performs, you're probably going to want to put it back to that position. And the best way to loosen up these boogers with the impact. Phillips impact. These impact drivers are real convenient for stuff like this. It keeps you from stripping out these Phillips. Especially if you're like me, you like to use Loctite on everything, which you should. Yeah, it can keep you from stripping out of Phillips. Alright, slide her on out of here, set it aside. I think this side of the motor is pretty much cleared out. I mean, I'll go ahead and slide that collar out of there. Oh, she's stuck in there pretty good. That happens. I'll just leave it on because when I go to split the case, that'll kind of force it off. But let me go ahead and get this out of here. You don't want to lose that. That's for the flywheel to locate it. If I remember correctly, they call them a keyway. Don't want to lose it. Send it flying across the shop. Got it. Nice thing about these rotors is they're magnetic. You can take all that stuff. Like I put this keyway right here, and the bolts will hold the flywheel and the stator bolts, and it'll hold it all in place for you. Even though I still got to remove the clutch cover, the clutch and all that, I'm going to go ahead and take the crank bolts off on this side. I mean the case bolts out. That way I don't have to flip it back around to this side. This side will be pretty much complete. Got one that's got dirt in it. Blow that out. That way I don't strip it out. Got her. Select all these. And now it's time to get the clutch cover off. Oops, I didn't have to remove that one. You notice I didn't remove every. All you got to do is remove the 8mm that are holding the clutch cover on. But this one, that only, and that one, you don't have to remove, or that one and that one, to get the cover off the bike. We don't have to take the water pump cover off, and we don't have to take this inner cover off. We just need the whole big cover off here. Oh, there she comes. Let me give her a little love tap right here. And she is off. I'm going to go ahead and pull these out so I don't lose them. These dowel pins. That one's in there pretty good. Let me see if I can get it out. And get the pressure plate off. Alright, slide the plates out of here. I'll inspect all of them in a minute. Let me go ahead and retain this stuff, get this stuff before it gets lost. There's a rod that goes in the middle here. You definitely want to make sure you get that, because otherwise you'll start playing with this motor when it's out in transmission parts, and that stuff goes slipping out. You didn't even know it fell out, and then it's lost. They have these locking tabs on the nut that holds the clutch on, which I purchased a new one of these because one of the tabs already broke off just from taking it on and off so many times. That's a little loose. Let me find the right size. There we go. Slide this off. Underneath here you have this washer. You got to line up the teeth to get that off. in the clutch basket, there is a bearing inside of here, so you make sure you get that. There's also a washer on the back end here. Real quick while I'm here, let me just take a look at this clutch basket. It's not showing any grooving yet. It does, yeah, very, 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 very minor. I'm going to say this one's good to keep running. Yeah, she's good. And the clutch plates look good too. There's no darkening, no burning. They look good and healthy. They're still nice and brown. So yeah, these will be reusable. Alright, get the shift shaft out of there. There's a washer. Always check for washers anytime you pull anything like this out. There's a washer on the back end. And then it also has this little spacer right here. Make sure you get that. What I usually do with that spacer is I stick a zip tie through it, just so I don't lose it. Alright, since I know I'm going to be taking the transmission out, which means this gear is going to have to come off, let me go ahead and get the Kickstarter assembly out. Check for washers. Once again, there is a washer stuck in the back side here. And let me get some snap ring pliers and round this thing up. These things aren't working so great, are they? There we go. Make sure it's not a washer on the back end. No, there's not. They only put a washer on the front end. So we'll keep that in mind. Let me go ahead and get the main gear off of there. If my memory serves me correct, this is not reverse thread. It's just regular. Yep. It really wasn't even all that tight either, but I'm sure they had it Loctited in. And they have this little washer. You have to line it up to get it out. There we go. I think all that's left is getting the shift mechanism out of there. But, yeah, I guess I'll do that now. What the heck. If you're careful, you can pull this out by grabbing right here, and you'll keep everything from springing dinging everywhere and keep it all together. Oh, no, I wasn't so lucky. Dang it. Go figure. Camera's rolling, and that's when you make mistakes. Close enough. For you guys in these YZ250s that catch false neutrals, that's like where you get stuck in like a neutral between third and fourth gear or fourth and fifth. It's the detent spring's not strong enough. I made a modification on this one that extends it and gives it more tension, which I'll discuss that when we go to put it back together. And but I just wanted to show you that now while we're in here. It definitely speeds up the shifting on the bike. We got to take this out, so what I'm doing is I'm looking for a spot that it locks up pretty good. There it goes, last gear. Now I can hit it with the impact, because that's the direction we're going to spin it. So I just wanted to get it as far as it would go that direction. Well, here, let me try this a different way. You can't just pry that off, but I'm gonna try just compressing it instead. I mean, get this detent lever pressure off of there. There we go. She's still on there pretty good. And that thing came off. Oh well. There we go. Alright, I think this motor is ready to split. Let me clean up the bench a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and split these cases. Okay, there's multiple ways, as I've said in other videos, to split motor cases. You can break out the engine case splitters, and that does work. You can, or you can just do like some people do and cram flat heads in here and pry it open, but I highly advise against that. You can damage the cases, and it's pretty crude. And there's this other method that I've been using for quite a while. What I do is I just take some long hardware. You can see it's all bashed up because it's been used. And you see that one's bent up. But I just slide it now. I just twist them in, and you want to bottom them out in the threads so that you get as many threads as possible, so you don't risk, stressing out the threads. I will say, the YZ250 two-stroke is one of the hardest motors that I've ever done to split when it is a virgin. I don't know what it is. If it's never been split before, these are some of the hardest, and they've been like that since '99. But let's see how this works. The beauty of doing it this way is you can only hit these so hard and they'll bend, so it's not like you can hit it too hard. And if the cases don't start splitting as you're hitting it, then you might want to check. You might have forgot something somewhere. However, in my experience, when you put case splitters on and you start torquing, I like this better. Look at that. I already started splitting. Just 2 little taps. See there? This one's not that hard, and this is a virgin. But yeah, I mean, look all the way across. Let me show you. All the way across. Just 2 taps. That's all I did. Because I know there's going to be them people say, you never do that. You have these people in the world, and you have what I call tool snobs. Wow, she's splitting easy. That's good. Tell you what, if you're feeling a little bit tool snobbish, watch some videos of like mechanics doing motorcycle work in Indonesia. Watch how they get some stuff done. It's freaking amazing, the stuff that they do with such minimum tools. It's just wild and just very creative. I watched a guy true a crank on one of them videos, and man, he just used like a flat, like a ruler, like a metal ruler. And when he was done, he did break out the dial indicators to show you that he had it right, and it was right. I was like, that's skill, man. And sometimes you need the special tools if you lack the skill, and sometimes you just need the special tool. Like I wouldn't want to have to pull that flywheel off without that flywheel puller. I've done it before. I've used regular pullers before to get flywheels off when I didn't have a puller, but I don't want to. It's nice when you do have the right tools, but just because they make a tool for something doesn't mean you need that tool necessarily. And sometimes that tool that they make might not be the best way to do it. But sometimes it's more for the idiots and people that just they don't have the experience to figure out how to do it, but the tool just kind of makes it easier. Anyway, my rant's over. Let's get this thing out of here. Remember, this was stuck here, so. There it goes. Got to be careful when you hit that. You don't want to damage some threads. I like this hammer though because it's been used for a lot of years and it's rounded on the end, and it doesn't have the gnarled end anymore. So it's a nice hammer for mechanical work. Because it's rounded, when I hit dead center, it's not going to hit any of the threads. But this case is splitting easily. Although the whole transmission wanting to come out with it. Dang it. It's not the way I prefer to do this. Well, at least that's off of there. try to be easy because I want to keep the transmission together as much as I can, so I don't have to try to figure out where everything goes. Here's my advice, which, you know, live and learn. It would have been a cleaner separation of cases if I would have left. You remember the shift drum? Remember the shifting mechanism stuff I had right in here that I removed? I should have did that after I split the cases, because that would have held this shift drum in right here, which would have held the shift forks in, which would have kept the whole transmission together. Yes, I'm taking the whole transmission out, and that's why I took it out, but you don't always have to take the transmission out if you're only replacing the crank. So if you leave that on, when you split the cases, all that will stay together. But that was my bad. I should have did it at least just for instructional sake. I should have did it that way. But all I'm thinking is the whole transmission's coming out, so let me just start ripping this stuff out. All right. But the good news is they did put a left and a right. There's an L right here on this fork and an R right here on this fork. And that will help you on the two forks that go on one shaft and know which one goes which, and then you can, obviously the third one will go on the other shaft, but we'll worry about that when it's time to put it back together. So for right now, let me pull all this out, and we're going to inspect this transmission and see if I have any worn parts. I can tell you, in the past, I was known, like I had two YZ250s in 06, I had two 06 YZ250s, and I was known to wear out transmission parts. I don't know if it was a transmission fault. I'm going to say it was my fault, because before that I had an RM125, and even that I'm checking for washers, by the way. Always check for washers. And even the RM125, I used to break transmissions. Maybe I was a sloppy shifter. Whatever the case is, I'm hoping I haven't worn this transmission out. But if we have to buy any parts for it, we will. Alright, let me set this aside for right now. Let me clean up the spot. We're going to take a look at this transmission. Okay, first thing I like to look at is the shift fork, so it'll let me know if it's ever jumped out of gear. If you see any grinding marks down here, the lower parts of the shift fork, that means it's jumped out of gear. And I'm definitely going to want to take a look at that gear set. I see a little something right there, but that's not much. And a little something right there, but that's not much either, and right here. So maybe, you know, let's see. Let's take a peek at this transmission. I'm not going to fully disassemble it. I'm just going to partially. That gear looks good. What I'm looking for is, I mean, obviously, let me start from scratch here. Obviously, you want to check all the teeth and make sure you don't have any teeth that are chipping or dinged up or anything like that. Well, so far, this looks good. And if you've never been in a motorcycle transmission before, it's easy to think that that's really all that happens is them teeth, but really what usually wears is the shift dogs. Let me show you. This gear right here slides over. The shift fork will slide it over, you see? And this gear can spin freely on the shaft, but this one can't. It's connected to the shaft and them grooves right there. And so what happens is it slides it over, and these teeth right here, dogs, cogs, whatever you want to call them, they slide into these grooves, and it locks these two teeth together. See, now it's locked. It only can spin so far. It's locked in. Well, right now, you spin it. So that's what wears is these right here wear, and inside here wears, and it allows it to, under power, it will force the shift fork back, and it'll jump out of gear. Go ga 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 ga. Or maybe not even go in gear at all. So, but so far this one looks good. Just some normal wear. That's okay. This one looks good. That one looks good. That one looks good. A little bit of normal wear, but that's okay. I'm going to slide these back together so I don't get it out of order. And then for over here, I have to inspect these. I'm just going to look through here, because to get this off the shaft, I would have to really dig deep. And let's see if I can get the light in here and show you. Looks good. It's not rounded. So every gear on that side looks good. Now let's check this side over here. All these gears are on the shaft, so I'm not going to take them off, because anytime you take one of these clips off, you want to replace it. When they're brand new, they haven't been through heat cycles yet. You can stretch them out with the pliers and put them on, no problem, and they'll grip down tightly. But after they've been through a lot of heat cycles, you open them up to get them off this shaft, and they don't close quite as tight anymore after they've been through heat cycles. So it's real important to the only thing I see ever so slight wear, and I don't even know if I should worry about it, it's so slight, is right here and right here. What I'm doing is I'm trying to twist this one this way. As I'm twisting this gear that way, I'm trying to twist this one this way, and I slide them together, and I'm doing the twist, and I'm seeing how far I can pull out before it jumps out. Yeah, that's in really good shape. I mean, it shows a little bit of wear in the very, 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 very tip. I don't know if it's worth replacing. Let me look at it. Let me think about this for a minute. Yeah, I think it's going to be okay. After looking at it for a while, I mean, it shows ever. That's more or less what I would call broken in, I guess. It's going to be okay. Plus, at $99 for gear, and the transmission's performing fine. So I'll just show you what I'm looking at here. Maybe let me see if I can get a light in here a little better for you. Hold on. So it's in good shape actually, but if any of the gears showed any kind of wear, it would, on this whole transmission, it would be there. But it's so minute, I'm just going to consider that broken in, especially because I would have to replace that, and that, or I should replace that. Yeah, sometimes you can get away with just replacing one gear, and but this one's $99, this one's $83, and that one's $50. So yeah, you're looking at a good amount of money there, well into the $250 range, $230 range. You know what, now that I think about it, call me crazy, I'm just going to replace this one right here, and I'll tell you why. That's the only one that actually shows a little bit of rounding on the very, very tip right here, but the gear that it works with here doesn't show any rounding for whatever reason. I don't know if it's harder metal or what, but it doesn't show any rounding. I'm just going to replace that gear. It's 99 bucks, but I'm just going to do it. Now, to replace this gear, you want to get a new circlip. So I'm going to order a circlip. There's only one to get to that gear. No, there's two. So I'm going to need two of them. And that $99 freaking gear right there. And of course, it's important to inspect the shift drum. They like to wear at the ramp here if they've been jumping out of gear, which this one really hasn't. I caught some false neutrals before I did that shifting mod, but it's never jumped out of gears on me. Although let me take a better look at this one. Okay, I am seeing the slightest beginning parts of wear right here. Can you see it there? Let me get something better to point at here. Right here, you see that little bit of wear I'm seeing? That's the beginning of wear. That's how it starts. All the other gears look good. I mean, all the other high points look good. That looks good right there. And that one looks great. You can see where the shift fork's been resting right in the middle there. That's beautiful. But it's just that one right here. I see a little wear up in there. So it's a $56 piece. It would be okay to use again, but for peace of mind, I'm going to go ahead and replace this too, because that and that one gear, and I'll consider the transmission freshened up. I got 135 hours on her, and I think the transmission can do easily another 150 if I just do these two things without no issues at all. 150, maybe 200, who knows? Maybe even more. Alright, let me go ahead and knock this bearing out. We'll get to the crank in a minute. First we got to get that seal out of there. See if I can punch it out like this gently. There we go. She's broke now. Alright, I'm going to go heat this case up a little bit before I knock this bearing out. I mean, there's several ways to do this. You can just use a big socket right on the bearing like that and pound it out with a hammer. That does work. You can also use a press and press it out. It's always best to get some heat in the case. They don't have to be real hot. You can put it in your oven in the house at about 170 degrees, the lowest temperature, under a cooking tray, on top of a cooking tray, I mean. And that's usually enough heat to loosen things up and allow the bearing to come out. Or you can, I'm just going to use my grill out here, but you don't want to get it too hot because, you know, I don't see any rubber seals in this one right now, but sometimes you might have a seal on the motor or whatever, and you don't, the seals are meant to get hot because motors get hot, but you don't want to get them too hot and damage any seals you might plan on reusing. But let me go ahead and put this one on the grill for a minute and get it nice and toasty, and then I'm going to opt to press this bearing out this time instead of pounding it out. While that's heating up, I'll show you. They have these bearing race and seal drivers. They're aluminum, and you can see my kit is brand new looking and clean. I really don't use it. I find it, now it's great if you don't have a lot of coordination and you haven't been doing this for a while. It can save you from accidentally hitting the wrong thing. I think that's kind of the point here. But and it might work good even with the press too, but you don't always need one of them. I don't use it very often. I'll have people comment from time to time, you know, saying you never use a hammer on a bearing or on a seal. I don't know, man. I've been doing this for, God, like 30 years, and it's been good. But don't be a fool, though. If you don't have good hand-eye coordination, that's a different story. If you're going to start pounding everything and hitting your case and not hitting the bearing or hitting the case instead of the seal, yeah, you know. All right, the case is nice and toasty. I left it on the grill out here on low for just, what, maybe 5 minutes or less. You don't want to get them scorching hot. You don't have to. Let's see. I might have to move this up a notch. Let me set this up. I'll be back. Not sure if it's going to go down low enough. Might have to rise it up a notch, but let's see. There we go. There it goes. It's sliding right on out. Woo! Hot, 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 hot. There's the bearing. Got that out. Okay, as for getting the crank out of here, you probably seen me in other videos. You can take the nut for the flywheel, put it all the way down on here, put a socket on top, and use a hammer and beat it out. What I did in the last video where I did a YZ250, I put it on the corner right here. I put the nut all the way down on the crank. Of course, you want to heat this case up like I did the other one to get the crank bearing out. Get it up to about 170 degrees. Put the nut all the way down so you don't mess up the threads. Put a socket on the end and use a heavy hammer, and you can beat it right out of there. Obviously, put your hand down here in the bottom. But on this one, I'm going to try using the press on it and press it out. And down in the description, I'll put a link to the other video where I mash them out with a hammer so you can see how that's done. Because sometimes you just got to get it done. Not everyone has all these kind of tools at their house. So I always like to show a way that you can do it, you know, get creative and get the job done without hurting anything or making any mistakes. Okay, I have wood here. I'll be setting the motor on, and just to be safe, I'll put this on top because I just want to, you know, I don't want to scratch the matting surface where I'm going to be putting the Yamaha bond when I go to seal it back up. I have the cases right now on the grill, getting nice and toasty, so let me go ahead and go grab them, and we're going to press this crank right on out of there. Alright, got the crank on there. Like I said, you don't have to have a press to do this. Just check the link down below and you'll see how I did it without it. And I've done it like that for a lot of years with no issues. As long as you're careful and you're safe. I'm going to screw this nut down on here all the way, just bobbing out gently by hand. There you go. I mean, I could press right on the end there, but I'd rather do it like this. Okay, I'm down on it all the way. Let's go ahead and knock her out.
If I'm making my way through Quebec or across Canada, I will there will be updates about it.
There she goes. All right, pop that loose. She's hot though. Let me get another glove on because it's got a little toasty.
Okay, Steve, take a big step. Thank you.
As always, the crank bearing likes to stay on this side of the crank, but the crank is out of there. By the way, down in the description below, I have a link where you can donate some race gas, PayPal, and the funds will help to, you know, purchase some stuff to review, better video equipment, and things like that. Just help improve the channel. Anything helps. So I appreciate it. Well, that's pretty much it for part 2. Part 3 will probably come in a week or less. I'm going to go ahead and order that gear right there, the shifter arm, a new swing arm pivot bolt, and maybe a couple little odds and ends things. I already went ahead and ordered B-Force 3, as well as I think I'm going to go ahead and at least polish up the exhaust port on the cylinder, but that'll be in video number 3 or 4 on this. For right now, I just have to get the parts ordered, and that way I have everything, and then we can start putting it back together. So stay tuned, guys. If you haven't already clicked subscribe, please do, and catch you guys later.